The US military is one of the highest performing organizations on the planet. I know because I was there. For a decade, I was an instructor pilot in the US Air Force. We would commonly perform large scale formation flights, air to air refueling, things that shouldn't be possible. But we made it seem almost normal. How did we do it? Well, that is exactly what I am going to tell you today. And more than that, I'm going to show you how to do it to improve the performance of your team. So what is it that the US military, specifically the US Air Force, does that make things so impossible seem normal? It's a simple technique called prebriefing. Not debriefing, but prebriefing. You've heard of debriefing, right? You know, after action reports, postmortems, a project happens, it goes well, it doesn't go well, and then you sit down and you say, okay, what went right? What went wrong? What are we going to do differently? And that's important. I'm not saying that debriefing is a bad thing, but I think there's something even more powerful that you can start doing, and that's pre-briefing, where before the project happens, you sit down and talk through everything that is going to occur. So when I was an instructor pilot, or the entire time I was a pilot, every single mission we flew started with a pre-brief. Some of those pre-briefs were 15 or 20 minutes long. We've done this before. It's a common thing that we know that we're going to be doing. There were other briefings that I led that would go on for hours because it was a really complex exercise with lots of things that people had never done. And so the pre-briefing is what gave everybody the chance to think about what was going to be happening, look at what we were about to do, ask any questions, get clarified of what was going to go on. And that was the key to our success. So it's the pre-briefing that allowed us to go do it, that set us up for then a better debrief later on. Just a quick interjection. I wanted to remind you that I run a company called Built, where we train the next generation of hard tech leaders how to build teams capable of solving the world's hardest problems. If you are an aspiring technical leader, an existing leader, or responsible for training leaders in your organization, please check out builtleaders.com to see if we can support you and your team. So if you want to start using pre-briefs in your organization, what do you have to do? Well, there's 3 specific elements that I think are really critical to a good, well-structured pre-brief. And the first one is exactly that, structure. You see, when we're flying, every single pre-brief followed the exact same structure. Where are we at? Where are we going? What are the things happening in between? What navigational aids are we going to be using? What instrument approaches are we going to be flying? What's the weather that we're expecting? Every squadron, every mission might have been slightly different in terms of what their standard was, but every unit in the military had a standard for this is how we run pre-briefs. And so that's the first thing that you need to do. And you can break it down by what it is that you're pre-briefing. You're never going to be able to come up with a standard way to brief everything that you do at work, but you could come up with a standard way that you brief out or pre-brief hiring somebody, doing the interviews. If you're getting ready for doing a panel interview or you're bringing somebody on site for a whole series of interviews, you should meet together and say, okay, here's what we're doing today. And that standard process could follow a standard flow. If you're out on the manufacturing floor getting ready to do a particular thing, lots of manufacturing and construction firms actually do this with their safety brief, where they make sure everybody knows what's going on. What I would say is that a safety brief is a very good pre-brief. It's maybe you're just expanding it out a little bit. But the point being is that if you want to use pre-briefs in your organization, you have to start by figuring out what's the structure we're going to follow, and you agree on it as a team and do it every single time. The second step, and this will kind of inform the structure, is that the pre-brief needs to be detailed enough that it puts people in the actual event. If you've ever watched the pre-briefs for things like the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels, they do a lot of what's called visualization, where they're actually sitting there, they close their eyes and they think through every single step of the flight they're going to be performing. That honestly is the level of detail. You want to make sure that during your pre-brief, you are walking through every step of you're trying to visualize yourself doing this thing or this thing happening or the person on the team that's going to be doing it. Because that's the only way you make sure you uncover any uncertainties, that everyone knows exactly what is happening. So the level of detail that you need to follow is however much detail you need to make sure people actually feel like they are in the event, they are in the project, stepping through it from one phase to the next. And then the final really important part of doing a pre-brief is that you create a space where everyone feels safe asking questions, right? This isn't the time for people to leave being like, oh, I think I know what we're doing. If you're the leader of the team or the project, then feel free to call on people and ask, like, do you have any questions? So do you understand what we're going to be doing at this phase? Like, make sure you're trying to draw people in and make everybody feel like they can ask questions, because that is a critical piece. Because the last thing you want is to run a great pre-brief, but then some people leave uncertain of what was said. So those are the 3 things that you need to do if you want to use pre-briefs on your team. First, you need to come up with a common structure that you're going to use every single time you perform the pre-brief. Second, you make sure that the pre-brief is detailed enough that it walks everyone through every step of the process or project that you're pre-briefing. And then finally, you create a space where people can ask questions. If you do those 3 things, promise you're going to see it impact positively on the performance of your team. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, make sure to subscribe, like the video. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments below and we can dive deeper in a future video. I will see you next time.